And welcome back to the Hoops Lounge, the show where air conditioning is always optional. My name is Marc Griffin, aka Montreal Mark, and today on the show we're talking about cramps. Yes, cramps, LeBron James in Game 1 of the NBA Finals. I am joined by my two partners in crime, Phil Boileau, aka Sporting Phil, and Mota Elb, the international man of mystery. So I'm going to throw this first one to you, Mota, because you and I both have experienced this on and off the court. Cramps. Let's talk cramps.
Let's talk cramps. Well, if you haven't had it before, I don't know what to say, but it's probably one of the most painful experiences that you will ever get in your life. You won't be able to move, especially if you get it in the legs. You won't be able to move, and especially for a guy like LeBron, for him to not be able to walk. It must have been really hard on him. And actually, part of my program, I actually asked our medicine professor, Dr. Boris Moryakovich. He actually used to play basketball, and he told us about the cramps and how it can affect. And he said that the cramps are due to many factors, such as dehydration or failure of muscle fiber. But the heat, because of the AC, not the Miami Heat, they were a factor of his cramps, not necessarily all of the things, but his preparation, the fact that he was probably stressed because it's Game 1 and all of that, practice and made sure that he got the cramp to this level. But the temperature in the arena was one of the factors. So follow Dr. Boris on Dr. Sponsate, and if you have him on Twitter, you can shoot him any questions. He'll definitely help you out with LeBron's cramps in practice.
So Phil, as a non-cramper, what was your reaction to seeing LeBron being carried off the court again?
Well, I mean, I'm kind of used to it at this point. I feel this is part of his playoff prediction. I mean, he always comes in, does this, and then he wins a ring. I feel like. If we're ever going to doubt LeBron James winning a ring, I think this was the telltale that it's going to be a three-peat. And I think, I think the Spurs were lucky to win Game 1. I think they wouldn't have taken it outside, because if you look at what happened, it was brutally hot in there. And when you play a short bench like the Spurs do, this plays to your favor. You can play less minutes, be more fresh. But LeBron James and the Miami Heat have to play big minutes, full court press. This is their style of play. And, I mean, it sucks, but LeBron James at the end looked like he couldn't go, and you could see the pain in his eye, especially when Tony Parker hit that three right in front of him. That was brutal. So
when you think about it, also, he scored 25 points with the cramps, so beware, Spurs, because he's ready to go. So 25 points and 6 assists with cramps. Imagine without the cramps. What do you think, Phil?
Well, I'm just saying, technically, I called Miami in 5, just being that crazy guy. So I'm like, do I get a free pass to say Miami in 6 because Game 1 doesn't count? Because it's not a real game?
No, you don't get a pass because you called also Miami wasn't in the finals in our first show. So no.
Well, Mota's not going easy on you today. Phil, I'll ask you this. Because Kareem Abdul-Jabbar wrote a really interesting piece in, I think it was in Time Magazine, talking about the air conditioning, saying how, back, I think it was the '86 finals, he played in the Boston Garden, and there was no air conditioning there then, and it was, like 100-day Fahrenheit heat there, and he actually had to get an oxygen mask. He was barely breathing at all. Should people be allowed to say, you put an asterisk on this game because, the air conditioning wasn't working?
I think it's going to be interesting. I think if the Miami Heat go along to win the championship, I think people will forget about this. But if they go to lose and it's that one crucial game, I think that could factor in. But, I mean, this conversation happens all the time. We're talking about how it used to be more physical back in the day. There wasn't air conditioning. So all these comments are just making modern-day players looking like big babies. They're little things. And there's another thing. It's not like every single player was cramping up. LeBron James, it seems to be his thing. He can jump to the moon and he can cramp with the best of them.
It's not his thing. Oh my God! His thing is scoring 25 points with cramps. Okay.
Who else is suffering like this? I mean, you're not seeing Ray Allen. By the way, that was a total push on Bellinelli. That was a complete offense.
On the dunk, yeah.
Yeah,
But it was beautiful though.
But he's 38. what is Bellinelli? How old is Bellinelli?
27, 28.
Exactly. You get pushed by a guy who's 10 years older than you.
Yeah, and I have to mention this, fellas. Talking about greatness, Michael Jordan once cramped up in an NBA Finals game. So everyone has their kryptonite. So I
Yep.
mean, it's not just LeBron. Mota, I'm going to throw this to you. In the kind of onslaught of the cramping incidents, the internet went wild with this. And one of the things I noticed was Gatorade jumped on trolling. What were your thoughts on that?
Oh man, I laughed so hard when I saw it, but it was just funny because one fan tweeted Gatorade and he asked him, so what do you say about LeBron's cramps? And what they answered is our clients don't get cramps because they get hydrated by our products. And then Kobe Bryant jumped in because he's sponsored also by another company. I think Powerade is getting a lot of heat because of that, because they're the sponsor, they're endorsing LeBron. But I actually laughed so hard. It was a great pickup by Gatorade. But again, I don't think Gatorade with a Powerade or with anything, it would have factored in LeBron getting the cramp. If he would have gotten the cramps, he would have, regardless of the hydration that he would have gotten with any product, he would have still got them.
And Phil, so one of the other things kind of snowballing here is these internet memes, hockey versus basketball. I saw Yogi Berra was, stormed the beaches of Normandy and then won 10 titles, and LeBron James gets a cramp. I mean, it just became to this extreme level of just absurdity. What are your thoughts about all these memes all over the internet against LeBron?
Well, I was looking at a bunch. I saw a few comparing some hockey players. This one guy playing with a punctured lung, and LeBron James couldn't play basketball with a cramp. I mean, I think the downfall of the NBA is people who haven't played basketball don't have an appreciation for how physical it is, and I think they often compare it to sports where, you push yourself past the point. But I think it's to your point before that, unless you've experienced high levels of, cramping like that, it's hard to judge on a certain level. Like myself and Mota would have completely different views on this. I mean, but at the same point, it's that toughness thing. I think a lot of people thought after the 80s, after the Isaiah Bad Boy days, the NBA softened up, and I think this is a running joke. Whether it's flopping, fouls, cramps, whatever you want to say, I think the NBA is having a bit of an issue now with it not being a tough game. And I wouldn't be surprised at all to see some commercials coming out trying to fortify that aspect in the coming years.
Although I imagine I prefer the Lance Stephenson memes blowing into LeBron's ears than these ones. But I guess Gatorade used actually really well the flu game of Michael Jordan 2 years ago when he was they correlated how he managed to get this extreme performance even though he had the flu by drinking more Gatorade. So that I think if in case Miami wins, and I'm pretty sure they will, Powerade will use this factor of, okay, without the cramps, he hydrated it and they still won. So
although it's not quite the same, right? Because all these other examples are more talking about playing through an injury, playing through fatigue, playing through illness. Now,
this one is the direct correlation with dehydration. So that's I think that if Powerade doesn't pick up on that, then that will be a missed opportunity.
Well, no, but I'm just saying, with those cramps, can you legitimately, from your experience, continue to move? Is it a mental game, or is it literally just physical at that point?
Well, I'll give you an example from my life. When I got cramps in high school, it used to be after a game, and it'd be say a calf muscle or a hamstring muscle, and it would be this immediate sudden pain to the fact where I would literally have to stick one hand in my mouth to keep from screaming, and the other hand punching the muscle to keep it from locking up. Literally punching it as hard as possible. You can't do anything. The analogy I would use, it's like when you don't pay your parking tickets and they put one of those big locks on the tire of your car, you can't move. Literally. You can't do anything.
So do you actually blame LeBron James then? Because if he has that parking brake on his tires, which is his leg, is it really his fault?
It is. Well, in a way, these guys at this level, they are prepared for the worst. But this was a condition that happened all of a sudden. He was prepared for a certain temperature. These guys are prepared for a certain temperature to play in certain arenas in certain conditions. Once there's a sudden change in those conditions, and it's an extreme change in the conditions, then your body will not react. Like Marc said, your leg will cramp up to the point that you won't be able to move it. And if you try to move it, the pain is so... You have no idea. It's so immense that it will you will probably start crying. You will probably start screaming, and it's just it's an awful experience to anyone.
So I'm gonna wrap it up here with just one last question for you guys. And the day after the game, LeBron did an interview with Michael Wilbon. And he talked about how during pregame the guys were all kind of they weren't told the air conditioning wasn't going to work for the game, by the way, and they were all realizing it's really hot in here. And then during halftime they were all trying to rehydrate as much as possible, listening to the doctors. So they were trying to prepare and pre-prepare as much as possible while this was going on. Both sides, Manu Ginobili made a really good point that this affected all players equally. But one thing that Michael Wilbon brought up, and I'm going to throw this to both of you, and LeBron said, I am now the easiest target in professional sports. Do you guys agree with that? Phil?
In all of professional sports? Like, are we taking in, like we're taking Tim Tebow into account? We're taking...
Everybody.
I don't know. I think he's the easiest, but I would say no. I think he's not, because I think those guys who have a lot of off-court issues, talk a lot and whatever, but don't produce, I think those are easier targets. I mean, because for every instance like this that will happen with LeBron James, he'll come out with a ring or an MVP. So at the same point, yeah, he'll have a game or two like this, but then he'll just completely destroy a team through an entire series. So I think in the NBA right now, because he's at that stature and everyone's looking at him, and he's playing in every game. I mean, look, if Carmelo Anthony had a cramp in a pickup game right now, no one would care because he's gone. He's not in the playoffs. And yes, I'm making fun of your Knicks, Mota. But just technically, because he's in the spotlight, he's going to get more attention for every little thing he does. I mean, but I don't know. I wouldn't agree. I don't think he's the easiest target because of his positive production.
Okay, Mota, is he public enemy number one?
LeBron, like always. I mean, he's the guy that everyone... The memes of him going all the way to the NBA Finals because he has Chris Bosh, and comparing him to Michael Jordan, who did it by himself, or Larry Bird, who did it by himself, and Magic Johnson, who did it by himself, even though they didn't, came back when Miami won against the Pacers. So he is the enemy target. He's the best right now, and nobody likes to see at this level someone who is that advanced and that young in his career and that good at basketball. So it's a different thing. And saying his body's shut down and we can't do anything about it. Obviously, everyone is going to start blaming him for not preparing properly, or saying that he's just faking it because it's LeBron and blah blah blah. But I think at the end of the day, we'll see this tonight. We're going to see a better LeBron, and I'm pretty sure that he's going to perform extremely well this tonight.
Okay, so we got jealousy, we got cramps, and we got drama. So we'll be back for the next round, Game 2s tonight, the NBA Finals 2014. And thank you, Phil and Mota, and we'll see you soon in the lounge.
Next time.